Welcome inside the Vegas Huddle. I'm your host, Mike Davis. Today, we're with a legend. I'm joined by a guy who's synonymous with basketball, yet bigger than basketball, an NBA Hall of Famer, an Olympic gold medal champion, and a true pioneer. The great Spencer Haywood joins us inside the Vegas Huddle.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks for being here, man.
I didn't know you were in the studio.
Well, this is the Den. This is our new
The Den.
The Den studio. It's beautiful.
Yes.
And listen, when I'm joined and lucky enough to be with a guy like you, we have so much we got to talk about. But before we get into your whole story, a new thing I learned about you is you actually were like me. You had like a disc jockey job while you were playing a jazz radio show. How did you get into that?
Well, I started with the radio show at the University of Detroit and WVOD, and we were competing against WJZZ, all of the big stations,
WJJZ. You have to have that voice, right?
Yes. So I was there because I wanted to get acquainted with the radio and TV because I was going to be an athlete in the media, so I wanted to do it. So one of my classes was Arts and Science, Radio and TV, and so I had this jazz show in Detroit, but we could only get it on campus, and you can get outside of campus, but all of the students and everything, we would do what's going on with the fraternities, who were like dating who, and then I would go into my jazz stuff, and I would be, ladies and gentlemen, this is Spencer Haywood, grooving right here with WVOD, the best jazz show in town. Even though we had Detroit, we had the whole of Detroit and Michigan, so it wasn't the best show.
Hey, but listen, when you were with the Sonics, when you were at the Knicks, you kept doing this, and you would take calls, but you would also tee up songs. Tee up your favorite jazz song for me. I want to hear this.
Okay.
Let's have some fun.
Today we're going to do John Coltrane. John Coltrane's Impressions with Jimmy Garrison on bass, McCoy Tyner on piano, and the great Alvin Jones, local Detroiter as well, on drums, and of course John Coltrane up front. So Impressions is like so it's that kind of a
See,
group.
I can't do it. I was gonna be like, ladies and gentlemen. You got to have that smoky voice. I don't have that.
Well,
it's like you don't. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're gonna be playing up a song. A song John Coltrane did in honor of one of his best friends. It's a little tune called Theme for Ernie.
Yes.
I love that song. That's one of my favorite chords.
Okay.
But I don't have the voice.
Well, you're Philadelphia, so you were with, John Coltrane, the Heath Brothers, all of those cats out of Philadelphia. Philly Joe Jones.
Yeah, all those guys.
Philly actually played with John Coltrane.
Yeah. All those guys, Miles. But, jazz, to me, a lot of the same parallels of great jazz musicians and artists, the way they were pioneers and broke way in music, you did the same thing in sports.
Well, that was why I was pioneering, because I wasn't thinking like, you were thinking about being and doing something unique and special, not really thinking about, I'm bucking the system and going against the grain and stuff until you are in it. And once I was in it, I mean, in terms of like the Supreme Court, I was like,
right.
OMG, what am I doing?
Let's give some perspective to people, because I think a lot of people have to understand, me being 30 growing up, I'm coming up from Philly, all of Kobe goes to Lower Merion. He comes straight from high school and gets drafted into the NBA. He's traded for Vlade Divac, he goes from the Hornets to the Lakers, but that was impossible all those years ago. You had to have 4 years after high school in order to make a living in the NBA. And this is a quote the late, great Kobe Bryant said about you. He said this with Bryant Gumbel on HBO Real Sports. He said, of the great Spencer Haywood, this is what Kobe said. He said, he pioneered this whole movement. He was the first one to fight for what he believed in. And it's because of him, he's opened up the doors for guys like myself, KG, Kevin Garnett, Tracy McGrady, and LeBron James. It all started with him. When you hear that from the late, great Kobe Bryant, what does that mean to you?
God, that's you kind of got me a little bit on that one, because Kobe and I, we got together like a year and a half before he passed on, and he wanted to do the Spencer Haywood movie.
What? Because he had a production company. He
had
was
a
winning
production
Oscars
company,
and all that
we,
stuff.
I mean, we met up out in California, and it was something that he wanted to do, and appreciation for me for what I had done for all of the players, not only him, but we talk about Michael Jordan. Notice y'all watching Michael Jordan's film and Duke's.
Yeah.
North Carolina and Duke out front. So, but all of the players from Julius Erving, George Gervin, all the way back from 1971, which the year that I won this Supreme Court ruling, and that was a battle in itself. But just on the idea that Kobe and the NBA players, they have grossed over $34 billion off of my little ruling. Poor boy from Mississippi.
Tell us about
Silver City, Mississippi.
Silver City, Mississippi.
And it ain't no silver, and it ain't no city. It's just cotton fields.
You know what? My good friend Carlos Span, who I'm going to give a shout out to, he wanted me to mention Silver City, so I'm happy you did it. Let's take me back to growing up, because a big reason for, propelling you to do this, it was tough growing up. At the age of 13, you're the primary source of income for your family, picking up to 200 pounds of cotton daily for $4 a day. You come from 10 siblings. Your mom was doing the same thing, picking cotton, making only $2 a day. Tell us a little bit about life growing up and how that propelled you to really become who you are.
Well, when I was born, and it was born by a midwife, so I didn't have birth certificates and stuff like that. So when I was born, all of the field hands came by to see this kid, and I had these big, huge hands as a kid, and everybody was saying, you know what? This is going to be the best cotton picker this county had ever produced. So I was like, I bought into the whole idea. So I would go out as a young boy and be practicing early in the morning while the cotton is wet because of dew, and fill up my sack, and then I would go. By the time 12 o'clock came around, I would have a good wet sack full of cotton. So that was part of the regiment, and I didn't know that the higher power, God, as we see it, was like developing me to be this basketball player. I was just picking cotton because you have 2 rows of cotton, and you pick from both rows using both hands, and you pull in the sack, and the sack get up to 100 pounds of cotton. So your legs are built up. So it was building me into this great basketball player. I didn't know it. I was just picking cotton. And so that was our source of income. We didn't have food. We were just hard workers, and we had a garden, so we grew vegetables. And then the hunting season, you would go out and hunt your food and put it in your dry storage in your shed. And so I learned to survive, to learn how to do things for yourself. So I wanted to protect my mother always. That was the whole journey. And
it's a lot of pressure for a 13-year-old. I mean,
yeah, but you're 13, you're just doing it because you wanted to be better than your brothers were, and you want to do something good for your mom, because my father died a month before I was born. So then I had to take over that role, and that was always taught to me by my mom, that I was this chosen one.
And you're very into gospel music while
Yes.
you're during this period of time.
Yes, because of, at that time you had to have hope. And so our hope was Mahalia Jackson, and she would be singing. My mama would always be singing with the people who making the quilts and all of it. So I was around a lot of women growing up, and she would be singing, "The Lord may not come when you want him, but he's always right on time." And it happens to be the ending of my speech at the Hall of Fame as well. So diverse back to Mississippi. So we grew up, and so one day we were talking about a basketball, and we wanted to have a basketball of our own because we didn't have a basketball and we didn't have a rim. We didn't have any of this. So Mom says, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to make you boys a basketball. And I was like, how are you going to make a basketball? It's got to bounce. She said, this one won't bounce. Don't worry about it. We'll get some rules in. So she put together this cotton and all of the quilts and put it in, stuffed it in a ball, sewed it up, and the ball was round. We were like, oh, it's cool. So we had to put in a rules that says you go bop, bop, and you make the pass or the shot. But the beautiful thing about the shot was we didn't have a basketball rim, so we put a barrel rim up. I know.
You got to be precise.
Yeah, you got to put a big barrel rim up on the backboard, and we built this nice, unbelievable, you couldn't miss basket.
Wow.
So we played like that. And of course, my brother Andrew, he would take 3 bops. So, he was always...
He was traveling.
He was always traveling.
So then
we started playing basketball in between picking cotton and working. So that was our, little part-time gig. And then one day, the garbage man, because, in my book, I talk about Santa Claus always come around February for the Haywood house because we didn't have money for Christmas or anything like that. We celebrated the gospel of Jesus Christ in the Christmas, but we didn't have the toys. We didn't have all of those things. So when they would throw out their toys, the kids, we would go get them and put them back together. So we got a good basketball of Vault, V-O-L-T, and we put a patch on it and blew that baby up, and it was just beautiful. It was just magnificent ball. The best ball I've ever had because it's the only ball I had.
Right.
And we got a basket rim that someone had thrown out, and then we welded and put it back together, and then we had real basketball. So the game is really on. But yet, still in the field, we had to go work,
Right.
and still had to pick cotton and do all of these things. So it was like a full schedule, And then, of course, we had Bible study every night.
See, it's a full schedule, but by the time you're in high school, you actually win the high school state championship in high school. And I mean, at that point, how prolific of a player are you? I mean, from a technical standpoint, are you just out matching people from your work ethic and your love for the game, or from a technical standpoint, how great of a player are you?
Well, I was starting to develop in Mississippi, and so my brother, he came over to Chicago while I was visiting my brothers in Chicago, which was the big disappointment because they would come down to Silver City. It ain't no silver. And it ain't no city. So they would come down with a big wad of money and a new car, and I was like, oh my God, I just want to get back to Chicago to be with these guys. So we get back to Chicago, and they tell me the car's rented. They had to turn the car back in, so everything was phony. and the money was a big wad of ones with 20 and 10 sprinkle in, so it was fool's gold. And my brother, who was raised in the city, Roy, he saw me play, and he says, look, we got to leave here because you're not going to survive. So we moved from Chicago to Bowling Green State University where he was playing, and I started playing against Nate Thurman and all those guys at 15. So I'm just playing, and so we go into Detroit for, like a big summer league event game, and I played against all of the players that was the best players in the state, and I was 15, and so everybody was like, oh my God, this guy can really play, he can run all day. Wow. Because in Mississippi we didn't have cars or nothing, so you just ran and you walk all day.
So you had the stamina.
I
you
had the stamina,
experience from Chicago playing with people.
Yeah. And so what happened was I played against the high school players. I had 27 points and 15 rebounds, and the coaches was like, and they were going crazy because I was like a free agent in high school, and Will Robinson, who was the best coach in Detroit, said, I want this guy. I want him badly. So let's see how well he would do against the college players because the University of Michigan had all of their players there. Cassie Russell, all of the great players from the university, and Ohio State was there at that tournament. So I played against them and had 17 points and 5 rebounds. And it was like, he can't play in another game. So I was like, I want to play against the pros. So that was Dave Bing, Eddie Miles, and all those guys. So I played against them and had 10 points.
And this is
7
at what age?
15.
At,
And the beautiful thing about it was, like, I was fascinated with the idea, because sitting over on the outside of the fence in a car was Aretha Franklin. I was like,
what? Wow.
I died and went to heaven.
Did you get to meet her? No.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for years. We would hang.
Wow.
But that was my first time meeting her. And then you had the Four Tops, you had the Temptations, you had all of the entertainment was there.
Motown.
It was called Crunk Field, Crunk Boxing.
Yeah.
But that was the indoor event. The outdoor event was baseball, tennis, and all of these things. So that's when I got discovered by Will Robinson. And Will Robinson introduced me to the team, and I had progressed to 15 and a half, 16. And he introduced me to the team. He said, boys, we've been playing like mules. I got us a horse.
Oh, my God.
And we're going to win the Class A state championship. It might take us 2 years, but we're going to win this Class A state championship, which had eluded the city of Detroit for 35 years.
And you did it.
And I did it. So everybody was like, oh, man, the savior for Detroit basketball. And I was an All-American, averaged 27 points and 21 rebounds.
I mean, that is insane.
In high school.
And you kept doing it, because I never even heard of Trinidad State Junior College.
Well, how that happened was I ended up being, in the top 3 high school players. So I wanted to go down south to my university. And so I signed with the University of Tennessee.
Oh.
And not recognizing that I was the first black and all this stuff. I just wanted my mother to see me play, because they didn't see me play because I went up north. So when I played against Mississippi and the Mississippi State, they could see me play.
Right, which is big.
Which is a big deal. So I get to campus with the University of Tennessee. Adolph Rupp, who was at Kentucky,
okay, yeah,
he had lost to 5 blacks in the Texas Western game the year before.
Yeah.
Yes, the legendary NC2A Finals.
Right.
So he thought he should have the first black superstar. So there was this argument between the University of Tennessee and University of Kentucky about Spencer Haywood. Blah, blah, blah. So Will Robinson came down and said, well, I'll tell you what, don't get involved in that pissing contest. We're going to send you to a nice school. Junior college, you stay there for 1 year, you maintain a B average, which you can do, and then you would come back to a major university, maybe UCLA or wherever you want to go. So I was like, yeah. So we get in the car and we fly out of Tennessee to Denver, and we're riding a long ride. I'm like, where's this college, He told me it was close to Albuquerque and close to Denver. We get there, and it's like 360 miles from Denver, 420 to Albuquerque. And so it was just balling and playing. And so I was maintaining my B average and playing. And all of a sudden, the 68 Olympics are coming around.
But you're averaging, I mean, this is sick. Yeah. At Trinidad State Junior College, 28 points, 22 rebounds. I mean, and that's what I love about you. Rebounding, it's all effort, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's so great. I mean, you were getting the 28, but you're also putting that effort in with the 22 boards. And then the Olympic team starts. And at that time, you become the youngest American to ever play in the Olympics.
Is.
It's still the youngest, yeah.
Yes. But how it happened was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar decided he was boycotting the 68 Olympics. And Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld, they signed their pro contract, and you had to be an amateur.
Right.
And so they were letting everybody try out that year. And they said, well, let's let the put together a junior college team and bring them down here to Albuquerque. And the coach was Jerry Tarkanian.
Really? Wow.
So Jerry was the team coach and everything. So he brought us down, and they were like saying, we're just going to bring him down because he's a freshman and he can't play because it's against the rules and whatever. So we just bring Spencer along because he was the MVP of the junior college, but he's too young. So I get down there and I'm playing against everybody. I was just thinking, hey, I'm gonna get me some nice gear.
They have good
and
gear.
I go back to
And
Detroit.
how old are you? 19?
19. I was 18 when I first got there, and I turned 19. And then all of a sudden, they calling up the players that would make the team. First, they said Pete Maravich,
Oh my
who was
God.
averaging 44. You're cut. You won't be on this team.
Why was he cut?
He said they hold on to the ball too long. I know. But I found out later that it was Press Maravich, Pete's father,
Who was intense.
who was intense, and also he didn't get along with Hank Iver.
Got it.
Politics again.
Interesting.
And so then they cut Calvin Murphy, who was averaging
Uh-huh.
33, and they cut Rick Mount, who was averaging 39. And I was like, oh, man, who's going to make this team? And so then they start, well, Dan Itzel, you're going to be an alternate. And the numbers wasn't adding up, and Jerry was like, you might be on this team. And I was like, so then they call out the players who made the Olympic team. The first player they called was me, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do? What about?
You weren't excited?
I was so excited, but I was worried
Overwhelmed.
because we was like, they were talking, you got to have your birth certificate, you got to have your passport ready because we're getting ready to go to Russia, to Yugoslavia, and then to Finland, and then back into New York to play the Knicks and scrimmage into the Cincinnati. Remember I told you earlier?
The midwife.
The midwife.
You didn't, so
I didn't have my credentials. So all of a sudden, they call my mother and say, well, we need that birth certificate up here. And she says, baby, this Bible been with me all of my life. I got the boy written down in my Bible here under John 21. That's when he was born, April the 22nd. Now, if you want to come down here and take a picture of it and move it up, and then they said, yes, we'll fly down to Mississippi, and then we'll take a picture. The Jackson Daily News took a picture in the Mississippi, and
that's
everybody
the
was.
birth certificate. The
They
Bible.
created a birth certificate
From the Bible.
from the
scribble.
Bible, yeah.
That is insane.
So I ended up, with the birth certificate. That was the story I was telling you about the midwife. That was my big nervous moment because I was, what am I
Right.
going to do for a birth certificate?
And it all worked out.
It all worked out.
You end up leading the team in scoring. You get the gold medal.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's remarkable. And just like, Will said, I mean, you end up transferring to the University of Detroit.
Yeah, but at the Olympics, remember that 68 Olympics we had the salute by John Carlos and
Right.
Tommy Smith. So that was one of the dramatic moments there. And then we had Jesse Owens come in to
Really?
speak to us because there was some mumbling about different people, boycotting and doing a salute or something like that. And so Jesse Owens was talking to us, and John Carlos, who did one of the salutes, him and Tommy Smith, they were like, well, we're going to have problems when we get back home. We're not going to get any jobs. And Jesse got angry, and he said, what if one of you SOBs had to run before Hitler? And we were like, oh, man, he dropped the H-man on us.
And he really spoke about that.
Yeah, he
That's
spoke
great.
about that. And so we were like, everybody was like, hey, no problem here.
What
And
do you-
George Foreman was hitting me in my side like, hey, man, all
That's heavy.
I want to do is eat some food out of this, out of the commissary, and we can hang, man, but we're not going to do anything. And so when George knocked out the Russian, you saw him with the little American flag, walking around because we were just young. And then when Tommy and John did the salute, they kicked him out of the Olympic Village and everything. And then when it got to our game, we were playing the finals, and when I when we won the gold medal, and they just talking about, well, we have a lot of records being broke in this game, and it was like, Haywood broke the scoring record. I was like, huh?
Wow.
And he broke the rebounding record. He broke the shot blocking record. He broke the field goal percentage record. And so I'm standing there, and they coming up close to me to put this medal on, and I was like, wow. 4 years ago, I was picking cotton in Mississippi. Now I'm standing on this podium receiving a gold medal. Ain't America great?
Yeah, and it's the power of the sports.
Power of sports.
It really shows you
Yeah.
that. And when you're a youngster like that, I mean, for you, and you have a legend like Jesse Owens.
Yeah.
Wilma
Rudolph spoke as well.
See, people who, I mean, were so much and you're bigger than sports, but I mean, these people are up there with Jackie Robinson in terms.
Well,
of...
Jackie spoke with Tommy Smith and John Carlos earlier that summer.
Wow.
And then Martin Luther King, all of them was talking about the importance of not boycotting the '68 Olympics because we are Americans and we just need to stand strong now because our cities are burning down. Detroit had just had a riot. I think it was Los Angeles, Newark, New Jersey. All of these places was burning. And then before we got to the Olympics, of course, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And so that was an interesting year, that '68
When you're
Olympics.
there as, a 19-year-old, how are you kind of just digesting, sports and performing, but also the civil rights nature of this and how this is bigger than sports? Where was your head at?
Well, my head was, I was just getting my first taste of it. And with Tommy Smith and John Carlos, seeing what the reaction was when they escorted him off the grounds in which the Olympic Village sat on. And then you had, of course, George Foreman, who had the American flag, and then I had my coach Hank Iber and Will Robinson, who had flew down to to Mexico City, to say, if you think about it, if it just even crossed your mind, I'm going to kill you. You're never going to get back to Detroit. So when I was worried about was all of the Black Power people in Detroit, what would they do to me when I come back for going to the Olympics? So we fly into Detroit, and all of a sudden, all of these people are at the airport, and I'm like, what are they doing here? And they were there to salute me for what I had done. We had Governor George Romney, who was Mitt Romney's father, was the governor, Mayor Kavanaugh of the city of Detroit, and they had awards and stuff like that. So I was like, wow, I think I want to stay home and go to college here.
And that's why you end up going to the University of Detroit, and you keep up everything. I mean, you led the NCAA in rebounding with 21.5 rebounds. Dropping 32 points a game. It's remarkable. And, during this whole time, at 19, you're already got the Olympic gold.
Yes.
You're continuing this great work now at the University of Detroit. And after your sophomore year, you want to be able to even provide further.
Yeah, well, I went to the university and said, listen, my mother back had went out in Mississippi for pulling that sack of cotton for all of those years. So she was literally crawling on the ground, picking cotton, scrapping cotton, and putting it in the sack. So I said, I got to do something. And they said, well, if we do anything for you, it's a violation of the NC2A. And I said, but we've been on 8 games on national television on NBC.
Yeah.
Y'all are saying that this school has grossed more money than it had ever grossed. So why can't I get a little taste? I don't have to go through me, but just go through
to my mom,
to somebody,
right,
and let her have something so she can get off of her knees. Can't happen. And so that's when I decided, well, I'm going to have to do something.
And before we get into that, because I do think present day now, this is very relevant with NIL and how players are starting to make money. I mean, if there was ever a time to really understand a more poignant story to express why college athletes should be paid, it's what you just said.
That's what I fought all the way
think?
to the Supreme Court with. That was my whole case. But what happened was I had no money. I had no way of helping. And my family's starving, so what am I supposed to do? So then the NBA had their draft, and they drafted Kareem #1, and Kareem didn't go to the ABA. And the ABA said, well, Spencer Haywood is the outstanding college player of the year. We have to learn how to beat the NBA in the draft. So let's go and get an underclassman.
Right.
And so that's when they came.
They made with that hardship exemption.
Yeah, and Hannah Storm's father, Mike Storm.
That was him. Hannah Storm. He was an executive, and he came up with that hardship exemption. Hannah Storm from ESPN.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So her father came up with that exemption. So Kareem is coming out of UCLA.
He
Lou
went to
Alcindor.
he went. Lou Alcindor went to the Bucks.
Right.
And then the next best player was Spencer Haywood. So they brought me over to Denver.
So so the NBA wouldn't let you come without the 4 years after college. The ABA, Hannah Storm's father, comes up with this hardship exemption. That gets you to go to the ABA.
To the ABA. And so it was like craziness because the NC2A and the University of Detroit were all screaming, he can't do that. He's going to destroy our bloodstream of money, you know?
Right.
Because players are going to leave college early and we're going to lose out. And then they was not speaking about this in the press. And the press says, well, but isn't the NC2A rule that you don't make any money? Oh, we forgot. We're not making money. It's our foundation that's making the money. We're not making any money. But they are. I know, they were.
But the thing is before we continue with this, is like, there was a lot of athletes around your time, even before you, who were going through similar family circumstances. So for you to be the one to speak up and spark this new change, to be a trailblazer, I mean, why was that you rather than anybody else? I mean, there's other people who probably had, family issues they needed to support, but you were the one who made the change. Why was it you?
I guess I was chosen by God because Wilt Chamberlain had the opportunity to do it. He left the University of Kansas.
Oh, right.
And he went with the Globetrotters for a year, and then he came into the NBA.
Oh.
So after I won my case, Wilt was saying, "You're so stupid." I would have done it, but I wasn't going to take that pressure.
Right. I mean,
to be ostracized for all of these years. So.
And what about Bill Russell while he's at University of San Francisco?
Bill Russell,
he didn't want to do it.
He didn't want to do it either. No.
And it's just because of the pressure. Because
and to be ostracized for all of your career.
And why were you okay with that pressure? Because
because I was still with the right form of idea that my mother was next to my Lord and Savior that was my goal in life, to get
that
her
image of her crawling.
The image of her crawling, and we're not having food because the hunter is gone. I'm in Michigan, so that was the dream. But I also had got caught up in the politics of things because when I was with Will Robinson, he would let me hang out with all of the judges and the lawyers and stuff, when I was in high school and in college. So I was very familiar with cases and cases.
So that probably helped you, because to me, I'm thinking at 21, when it's Spencer Haywood versus the National Basketball Association, you're 21 years old, that's a very uncomfortable spot to be in. But having that buildup of just the osmosis of being around politics and judges and lawyers, it probably made you feel a little bit
better. But, I had that great season with Denver.
Right.
And Denver decided, well, we want to make you the highest paid player in the history of basketball.
Because let's real quick. Exactly. The Denver Rockets. I mean, everybody's familiar now with the Houston Rockets. This is the Denver Rockets in the ABA. They draft you. Your rookie season as an ABA
He didn't
player.
draft me.
Are you? Who
I wasn't
drafted
drafted. I wasn't drafted.
you? You weren't drafted?
No, they
Grabbed you.
just grabbed me out of college.
Okay.
I was the first one. So
Okay.
there
So
was no draft here.
no,
Because,
no
yeah.
draft, but
So
they get
got
you.
me. They got
And
me.
in your rookie season, you're leading the ABA in both scoring and rebounding, 30 points a game, 19.5 rebounds a game. In that rookie season in the ABA, you're the ABA Rookie of the Year. You're the ABA MVP, and you also win the ABA All-Star Game MVP, all at the age of 20.
Yeah.
It's probably the greatest season ever in
Ever.
ABA history.
Yeah, and ABA and basketball history, other than Wilt Chamberlain, his rookie year.
And you went to
We
the
were
Western
tied.
Conference Finals for
Yes.
the ABA that year as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, okay. So,
And guys who was on that team.
yeah, who
with
was
me,
on that team?
Lonnie Lynn Sr. was on that team.
Lonnie Lynn Sr. I don't know.
Where do you know that name from?
I don't know.
Lonnie Lynn Jr. is Common.
What? The rapper?
Yes.
Common? His father?
Played on the team with me in Denver.
Wow.
And who was coming.
That's
right,
why he's so good at basketball. Now I understand.
Now you get it.
Now I'm always like, why is Common so good at basketball in these All-Star games? Okay.
Yeah, and he was also the ball boy for the Bulls,
wow.
Chicago Bulls, with Michael Jordan era. But also, who was coming to join me was Ralph Simpson.
Not Ralph Sampson. Ralph Simpson. Who is that?
He's from Michigan State.
Okay.
Played with me at Pershing High School. His daughter was born, and it's India Irie.
Oh my God! Look at how the music is just funneling between Common, between the gospel, between jazz, between India Irie.
Yeah,
She's one of
so-
the best ever.
Yeah, so that was Denver, and so they gave me this contract for $1.9 million, but
1 point. And what year is this?
this is in 1970.
Oh my Lord! They gave you a.
But it was a fraudulent contract.
How?
How it was this? They gave me a base salary of $100,000.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And I know players today like, we get that in per diem. Back then it's like
I mean, still, that's a lot of money.
that's a lot of money. It was a big money for me. And then they would defer the 1.5 million.
Okay.
How they deferred it, they said, we put in $10,000 into the stock market,
Oh my.
and when you get to be age 50 to age 70, you withdraw this money, which would equate to the 1.5. If the market works, and you would also in the contract, they wrote a clause in it that says you would have to be with Ringsby Truck Line, which is rocket service, from age 50 to age 70. So there was a fraudulent contract. So I went in with my lawyer, Al Ross, and he's like this young Jewish lawyer. Like, he come in,
Yeah.
hey, you need to straighten out this contract. You need to let's
Oh,
get
thank
it straightened
God.
out. And so both of us are sitting there, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna straighten this contract out because I signed it as a 20-year-old, so I needed to be 21 to do it. So you got a fraudulent contract. Come on, let's straighten it out and let's go on and play. The owner looked at both of us and said, I tell you what, you get your nigger ass out of here and take that damn Jew-ass lawyer with you. Get out of my office.
What was that? Well, what owner was that?
That was the Denver Rockets
What was his
owner,
name?
J.W. Ringsby.
What?
Yeah, I know. So,
What?
yeah, and
So what happens?
So we left the office and we were like, what are we going to play, man? What's going on? Why did you mess me up, Al? I was putting it on Al. And then I
But
was like,
thank
I didn't
God
know
he
what I
did
was doing.
that.
Yeah, I know. So Al said, you know what? The NBA is trying to sneak players out of the ABA undercover. So you only have one more year left. Why don't we try to get with Sam Schulman
From the side.
from the Sonics, because those were the two expansion teams, the Phoenix Suns and the Seattle Supersonics. Now, Jerry Colangelo, who owned the Suns, he went out and got Connie Hawkins from the
Wow.
ABA. He was the MVP before me,
Right.
and he took him out. And so the next one was me. So when Sam Schulman said, we're going to sign him, we're going to play him this year, this antiquated rule is not going to stand up in court. And I was like, no, it won't stand up in court. Let me play. So I run into the game and let's get this thing going. So my first game, I'm out there warming up, getting ready to play, and the NBA says, ladies and gentlemen, we have an illegal player on the floor, number 24. And
They actually announced this.
Yes, this game cannot proceed with him being on the floor, and plus we have a 10-game injunction against him. Well, I can't play? And Lenny Wilkins was my coach at the time. He was a player coach, and he was like, you got to go in the locker room. So I went into the locker room, and then I just started waiting my 10-game up, because Sam Schulman and the great attorneys that we had was Governor Pat Brown, Jerry Brown's father.
Oh.
We had the MGM attorney for MGM Studios.
Wow.
And so we were going up against the guns that the NBA had. And so my 10 games were up, and then I got a 10-game stay to play. And so every game they would come out, ladies and gentlemen, this game is under protest. We have an illegal player. This game will not count in the standings.
And you would play.
And I would play. They threw things at me and said, go back to college. What are you doing out here, messing it all up for everybody? The fans, you know.
But no, wait.
But I seen that in Mississippi, so it wasn't that big of a deal.
What do you mean you saw that in Mississippi? When
I grew up like that. You know,
people, while you were
throwing
playing.
things and
And how, I mean,
So-
to perform at a high level when people are, if I was hosting a show and people are throwing stuff at me, I would be a wreck. I wouldn't be able to do
I
it.
kind
How
of
do you?
thrived in it a little bit because I thought I was doing something so revolutionary. And the old heads like Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Wilt Chamberlain, all, stand strong, young boy. You know, you're going to win this thing, and it's going to be good for all of basketball. Why didn't you do it? And so I kind of took on that persona, and so we went on for those 10 games, and then they got me again for another 10 games to sit down, and then I would get another injunction to play. So we're moving into the East Coast, and we're going to play in Cincinnati. So they sneaked one in on me, and they said, ladies and gentlemen, we have an injunction against this illegal player, number 24, and he must get off the grounds in which this arena sat on. So they put me way out into the snow, and the bus couldn't come get me, so I'm standing out there like, oh, man, I'm going to freeze. What's going on? And people yelling, we got him, we got him, we got him. So I'm out there with the security and the police department because they had to serve the injunction. And so I'm sitting out there and I'm freezing, I'm standing, I'm walking around. And so these two officers said, we're not going to let you freeze. We're going to violate our oath. You get in this car and warm up. So we got in the car and we warmed up and we talked about the case, talked about my mom and why I was going through all of this stuff. And then when the game was over, get out, get out, get out. So I had to get out and wait. It looked like I was freezing, but I wasn't. I had been warmed up. And so those two guys saved my life out there.
That was a nice thing.
Another
So-
nice thing. So then the cases worked its way all the way to the Supreme Court.
And this is all while you're kind of
I was
illegally playing.
I was illegally playing.
But this is all happening, and you know you have the attorneys. And do you understand? I mean, the gravity of what's happening here with this Supreme Court case. It's your name up there. There's all these other
but
attorneys,
at
but
that
Spencer
time-
Haywood.
At that time, it was like just big news all over the country because the NC2A had wrapped themselves around the NBA in terms of like, we want them to fail, we want them to lose because we're going to lose money
Right.
if this guy wins this case because our players won't stay but 1 or 2 years, 3 years, you know, and they're out of here. We're losing money. Our superstars are gone. So we get to the Supreme Court, and they are hearing my case, and they're talking about, You know, we have, like in sports, we have tennis players that can go in at 15, hockey players can go in at 18, baseball players can play at 18. Why is it that basketball and football, you can't allow it to happen? So Mr. Haywood has made this appeal to us, and we think it's about the economics of sports,
Right.
and that's where the NIL come in, because it says, well, you cannot make money off your athletes, and you're paying your coaches $1 million back then, you know, and the players can't make anything. So we think this case is a great case to change that rule. And under the Sherman Antitrust Act, we cannot allow this case to go on, and we awarded 7-2 in favor of Spencer Haywood. I was like, oh, yes, I can play. And then I would go out and start playing, and, you know, people started like, you know, it's all right. He's young. And once they learn the story behind it, that I am trying to, you know, save my family and stuff like that, then they, you know, the fans like, hey, yeah, bring on the young boys, you know?
It's not fair, because it's like, even today, I think a lot of people, there's a glamour and a nostalgia about, you know, amateurs playing in college and all this stuff, and just being there to be in college and be a student athlete. But people who say that aren't in those shoes. They're not in the position to understand, you know, putting your heart and soul, risking your health, risking all these things to go out and perform, and the school's making this money and your family's struggling. And it's,
well, the school makes the coach, they, like today we were saying, they make up to $10 million. The towel boys, the guys who pick up the towels in the locker room, they make $150,000.
what?
Yeah, because
Let me
see,
get up
all
and
of,
leave. I'm just gonna get. Let me go find
no,
a
I tell you
towel to
what.
pick up.
See, all of the funds that come in, it's under 501c3.
Right. It's
So they have
donated.
to, so they have to they have to get rid of the money that they have made from the bowl games and from the NC2A finals and Final 8 and 64. So all of that money, they have to get rid of it. So they give it to the ball boys, to the towel boys, but you can't give it to the player. That's a violation.
Right. So
So everybody gets paid but
the
the player.
So today, for how things are now, with football players are getting paid now, NIL. What does this mean to you? What do you think?
Well, it's that time, and I'm so grateful for it, because, you know, you had players who were trying to finish up in college and go to the pros, busted their knees. They don't have health insurance, so they can't get their knee fixed, so they're walking around with the leg all messed up from college. And the schools don't take care of them. Once you're 4 years up, you're out of here. Get away. I don't know you. I got another group of players coming in, so it's the market, you know.
And it's amazing, because there's been so many even changes. I'm 30. I remember growing up, you got guys like Lewis Williams, Tracy McGrady, all these guys, Kobe, they're coming out of high school. Then they changed the rules again.
They changed the rule
and
again.
made it 1 year.
Yeah. Well, they were trying to keep my name out of it. So what happened when I won the case, it is Haywood versus the NBA. You always have, like, Roe versus Wade, Brown versus the Board of Education. Your name stuck on that rule. But because I sued the NBA says, we're going to call it the hardship rule. Then after that, they call it early entry. And then after that, they call it one and done, when they did a collective bargaining agreement with the union that maybe 1 year out will make them go to college for 1 year or go overseas or whatever. And now you have the European players like Luka, and all of them are saying, hey, man,
I was playing at 14.
I was playing at 14 and getting paid. So, you know, it's not sitting well with
So they were doing all these nuances.
all these nuances. And so this year, they are now finally going to name the rule after who did it. And it's going to be called the Spencer Haywood
So it won't
rule.
be the hardship exemption rule.
No, it's
anymore.
just
It'll be
the Spencer Haywood rule.
And
So
a
that
lot
is
of
coming right after this collective bargaining agreement that's happening right now.
See? That's
So all the players will know what I did and who I am, because they don't know.
They don't know?
No.
Kobe.
Kobe knows because his dad played
Joe Jelly
Joe Jelly Bean,
Bryant, Philly guy.
Philly guy.
Exactly.
So he played, and then a lot of Kobe is a student, LeBron is a student of the game. So
Right.
guys
But
like
these
that.
young guys have to know because a
No,
lot
they
of them, they don't know.
No.
When you
Even
go,
Steph Curry, I was like, Steph, your dad played.
he doesn't know.
He didn't know, and then
That's not possible. Steph Curry doesn't know what you did.
Steph Curry didn't know.
Tell me about that exchange. What happened?
Well, we were talking about it, and he was sort of like blinded by the idea that he came in after 2 years under my ruling.
Right,
And I'm
gave it
telling him, like, hey, I'm this guy.
And that's what's so sad to me is because you're a young dude. Look how vibrant of a guy. This isn't that long ago. People think this is like ages ago.
Ages.
And it's not.
It's not.
This was your life.
Yeah.
And I mean, Steph should know that.
Well, I know, but because the NBA hid it for all of these years, and the Players Association hid it for all of these years, and I don't know why they did it, but
Because do you think it's just, it looks ugly? It's ugly. It's an ugly.
it's ugly that you had to sue the NBA in order to play.
Right.
And what was the NBA stance on all of this, So they want to cover it up. So I'm the
It's
cover.
a shame. But I mean, that's why it's so important for you to be out and about doing what you're doing,
And being up here with you.
I love it. Listen, it's so critical. And then, what's so great is you do this at 21 and you go on to have a great career. 12 years in the NBA, NBA champion, with the Knicks or with the Jazz. You're doing all this stuff and, to have a paramount moment like that and then so much more life, right?
So much more life, but it was trouble because of the fact that I was told by NBA officials, even though I'm a 20-10 career player, if I wasn't a first or second team All-Pro, I couldn't be in the All-Star game. I was being blackballed, of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you were putting up great numbers. Your career
I know.
numbers are 20 and 10,
I know, but you can't be on the All-Star team.
Tell us about a couple other things. Let's transition to something a little happier.
Okay.
Because this is, I think,
No, this is deep, but
this is deep and it's important. But I want to hear some happy stuff here too.
Okay.
Iman.
Iman.
How do you meet her, and how do you? So Iman, the beautiful model,
Fashion
is
model from Somalia.
right,
Who had
gorgeous.
taken over the world by storm.
She's taken the world by storm. She's dating Warren Beatty.
Yes.
And how do you meet her and get her away from Warren Beatty?
I was I was with the Knicks,
Okay.
and I had just been traded with the New York Knicks, and so I was out. And
who's on the? Is this Walt Frazier?
Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe.
Busher?
No,
No, he's-
Busher had left.
He left.
Earl Monroe, Walt Frazier, Phil Jackson, Bill Bradley.
Bill Bradley, the great
Yeah.
Princeton guy.
Yeah, Princeton guy.
Yeah.
He's always reading a book.
But Earl, I mean,
And Walt Frazier had this big old thesaurus. He was always reading,
really?
creating words.
And he was a dresser, man.
Yes.
With that fur
Real
coat,
dresser.
top hats.
Yeah, and the
And-
Rolls Royce.
So you guys are all going out.
So we
going to
all hanging
clubs.
out and stuff like that. But no, I was meeting because I was in New York and I hadn't got situated, and I was meeting strange people and strange women, but I was not hitting it off with anybody. And so I was meeting Iman's roommate. Yeah.
You're
And
meeting
so
her
I
roommate.
was meeting her roommate.
Did she look good too?
Yeah, she was a model
Man,
too.
what an apartment! What an apartment!
So we were like, we
Imagine
were
living
meeting
on that floor.
Yeah, so we were meeting, and we was meeting at this place called Cleo's Restaurant on 64th and Broadway.
Okay.
And so Iman, she came in with her hijab, because she's a
Yeah.
Muslim, and she had on her stuff because she was being presentable
Okay.
to another man.
Yeah.
And I asked her about that later. And I said, why would you have all that stuff on?
Yeah.
What's the catch? Because I wanted to catch you. Because she knew about me.
Wait, so
and I knew about her.
okay, wait, hold on.
but-
You're going on a date with her roommate,
Right.
But Iman knows about you.
Yeah.
So she's dressing
Because
up.
her and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and we were like studying Islam together. And so she
Gotcha.
was like, well, I'm interested in a brother like that. So
Wow.
so we were in this restaurant, and so she keeps staring at me, and I keep staring at her. And her roommate says, I think I'm an odd person here, so I'm out of here.
I love that.
And so we go up to my place, which is where Nina Simone lived, and
What?
Lionel Hampton. All of us
Oh
were
my
in this same big
God.
building on 64th, and so we went upstairs and we just started talking, and then we started hanging out and going with each other different places. I would go to her modeling shows, and
Do you kiss her that first night?
No, I wouldn't dare do that.
When's the first time?
Yes, I did.
You know? How do you? I mean, and she was. There was. You guys hit it off. You had a connection.
Well, we just were, because you got to look at Somalia. It's like Mississippi in a way. Yeah, because they were living in exile because their political party had lost, so they kicked all of her family and her political dad and all of them out of the country.
Wow.
So they were in Kenya living, and in Tanzania, and also in Egypt for a time. And so here I am, these two country people, and we're like walking through Central Park, just hanging out and stuff like that. And I remember Bill Bradley. I saw him walking down the street on 3rd Avenue, and he and his wife, and he was like, "You finally got a good lady." And she's standing there and talking, and I'm like, "Why did you say that, Bill Bradley?" "No, I see it in your eyes. I see it in both of your eyes." And
That's a beautiful thing. So you had a really deep connection.
Deep connection. So then we just started going to the games, and she didn't know what she was cheering about because, basketball was not foreign to her in a way. And the wives and the girlfriends man, it's like the perfect couple.
Wow.
Y'all are so nice and so beautiful. And the next thing you know, she was telling me that she was working on a green card, and I said, "Well, you're not going to be working too much longer on this green card because I'm going to marry." And she was like, "Oh."
Wow.
Then we got married, and
how did you propose?
I just proposed. I mean,
where was this? Did you
was
do it
at
in the
my
middle
home,
of the street,
yeah.
at your home?
Yeah. So then we just started. We went to the mosque and got married, and Kareem was supposed to stand in, but he had to go out of town, and so we then called up another friend. He stood in with us, and then the next thing you know, we were like just living together and dating, and I mean, we were married and all that, but we were still like dating and going out, and everybody was like in love with this athlete and model,
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, she was pregnant, and I was like, "Oh my God, my first kid." I waited all these years. I was 28 years old. I was like, and everybody, normally they get married early, but I was a late bloomer. And then our daughter came, Zuleika, and then we just we hung out, spent a lot of time, and then she said, "Well, my family's still scattered throughout the world." So I said, "Well, why don't we bring Nadia and Idil to live with us in New York?" Because I had a brownstone, I had a lot of room, so I brought her sisters there.
Oh wow, what a great thing!
And they lived with us, and my daughter was being raised with all of this family, so it was pretty cool. We had a good marriage. We were good.
And because you're being so forthright and honest, I mean, for all those years you're together, and the reason that ends, is it with was it the drug stuff?
It was the drug stuff in L.A. because I got to L.A. and I started. I was never a cocaine user like that, but it was promoting the whole scene of coke out there, and all of the actors and actresses and everybody that we were around was doing this coke. And then I was like, "I don't want to snort no coke. I messed up my nose." So this guy come out with, "Oh, this is the new thing. You got to have it. It's a freebase. It's all of the impurities out in the bottom, and then you just smoke it off the top." And I was like, I want to believe that lie. So I hit that stuff, man. I watched my game go from 24 points and 12 rebounds down to, at the end of the season, five rebounds and 7 points per game, maybe 15 pounds lighter. My marriage was crumbling. Everything was going nuts around me, and I needed some space. So the Lakers' Jerry Buss came to me and said, "Look, what you want to do is you want to go with Dallas the expansion team, but we're not going to do that because you're going to come back and hurt us next year when you get all clean and
Right.
sober.
Right.
So we're going to look like nuts with the Lakers. So we're sending you off to Italy. And they sent me off to Venice, Italy.
I didn't know this.
And so I'm off in Venice, Italy playing, and my wife come over, Imamba come over. She scheduled her stuff to be in Bologna, the shows there in Milan and in Paris. So we had a good connection there, and our daughter would spend a lot of time with us.
Wow.
And then I moved back to the Washington Wizards after 1 year over there. The Bullets, yeah. And while I was with the Bullets, I was just playing and killing them. And Imam was in a cab accident.
Oh.
And so I decided, well, you know, this is sort of like my mother's stuff because she was like close to that idea. So I said, I think I'm gonna retire to go home to take care of my wife and my family and my kids and stuff. So I went home to take care of them, and then I realized I couldn't stay in New York because I was sliding back into the whole world of craziness. So I moved to Detroit to be back home near my family and everything, and retired.
You know, it's
and
crazy.
So,
it's just crazy for me hearing this because
well, let me tell you the other part
Okay,
of it.
okay.
So when I get to New York, and Iman and I had always talked about, well, you know, whoever was not working would help to raise the kid, you know. And so I asked her, well, you know, I'm not working, and you're still working and doing all of your stuff. So why don't I take my daughter and raise her here with my family in Detroit? And she agreed, and that's why my daughter came at 12 years old, and she went to high school in Detroit and went to the Michigan State in Detroit. So we shared, you know, joint custody and stuff. And we worked it out.
See.
Ooh. And then one day I'm going to I was in L.A., so she picked me up in this white Land Rover, and I'm like, whose car is this?
Oh no.
Now we've divorced and been gone a long time, but I'm like, whose car is it? She says, well, it's David Bowie's car, and I was like, you mean you're gonna give me up for David Bowie? So we were just kidding around, but we went to the play. What was it? One of the plays that we went to, and our daughter was with us. So, and then I realized what was happening.
Did you ever meet him?
Yeah, I know him well.
Well, he was a cool guy.
He's a cool guy, a real cool guy, and good people, man.
A real.
And then you know, so Magic Johnson was hanging with David at that time, and Luther Vandross. So all of those guys were hanging out, and so Magic was all shy about telling me, and I was like, man, I know what's going on, man. Come on, this is. You know,
right?
Yeah,
See?
yeah. So it was beautiful.
It's amazing.
And to this day, Iman and I still communicate with each other. We have a daughter, and we have a granddaughter, who is bossing me around already.
How old is she? Your granddaughter?
She's 5.
Wow.
Yeah. Grandpa, do this, do that, do that. I was like, where did you pick this up from? My aunts. Because I have 4 daughters, no boys.
Right. Yeah. See what? But I was gonna say, you know, to me, hearing the story with the drug stuff, it's amazing because hearing your story, it's like.
Well, I ended up getting out of the drugs, you know, and I this is my 35th year of sobriety. But
congrats.
I had to move away from where I was located,
right?
And I had to give up the woman that I love, you know. I mean, I couldn't survive in the environment.
That's true.
And so I was fortunate enough to find another marriage, another lady to marry, and we had 3 more daughters. So life has been good.
And it's amazing because somebody who, I mean, what your shoulders had to bear and carry with the Supreme Court and growing up and all those things.
Stuff.
It's amazing. To me, hearing this story, you're the strongest person I've ever met. And then drugs can do that to somebody.
Drugs can do that. And so I remember, because I was going to see, Imam was like, well, you know, you got to go see a psychiatrist. And I was like, a psychologist, psychiatrist? We black Americans, we don't do that stuff, you know? And so she finally convinced me to go, and then I fell in love with the idea.
Right.
And so I've been doing this. And so my young daughter, Shakira, who would go to my meetings and all of that stuff with me, she ended up going to college and becoming a basketball player, and now she's a doctor.
Oh, wow.
And she's a psychologist.
That's amazing.
And she works for the NBA Players Association.
Oh my God! Look
I
how
know.
full circle that
Full
is.
circle, yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and so our oldest daughter, Zuleika, she runs Iman Inc. and to help her with her
Oh, see?
project. And then I have my next daughter, Nikia. She's a professor at Lincoln University, and my youngest, Isis, is with public.com. You know, you young people
Yeah.
about
Man, you're a
about
proud
the
dad.
Bitcoins and stuff,
Look
all
at
that
you.
stuff. So that's a blessing.
You've been here 12 years in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, you're so involved in the community with so many great initiatives. Tell us a little bit about everything you're involved with and what you do.
Well, I'm involved right now at this moment. I am involved with Roseman University, and we are trying to bring about a change in terms of medical. Now, we have a lot of blacks and Hispanics who have not went into the medical field.
Mm-hmm.
Here's their opportunity. Here's an opportunity for them to go into the medical field, because with the pandemic and everything, then you saw the need. And so we have a program where we are training up young people to become doctors. And if not just doctors, you can be in the medical field.
Wow.
And so we got a lot of good response from that. And I love what I'm doing. And I have the Spencer Haywood Foundation where we're putting on basketball camps. I love to watch kids play and teach them the games and talk to them about the crises that are in front of them, like drugs and alcohol and all of these things. So they get a chance to, I get a chance to hear their stories. And so it's been really awesome. And then when I came here, I started to build. I came to Las Vegas. I was here to build, we were talking about building an arena for the NBA team that is coming years ago. And so the MGM says, why don't you just become a supplier with us?
Ooh.
And I ended up being a tile and marble supplier with the MGM and all of the Caesar's Palace and stuff like that. So I was doing that work with my company, American Community Builders, where we built we did the Children's Museum.
Oh, Discovery Children's Museum?
Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's all of my flooring. We did the Army Reserve Center out in Sloan, all of that flooring. We did just a number of jobs in town. I was not into the money thing. I just wanted to do great things for this city. And then I realized that, hey, I'm not going to be fighting with the unions and everybody all of my life, so I want to go play golf. So I started doing this and started doing all of the stuff that I want to do, going around helping and doing the deed, because I've been so blessed to have my sobriety, have my family, and I can be a great service. And the NBA has came full circle, and they are getting my name on my ruling. I just finished up with a book called The Spencer Haywood Rule. And Hollywood is come knocking now for the movie because of the fact that they saw in Winning Time, which everybody saw my fall.
What do you think about that, Winning Time?
It was cool
HBO?
about me because I kind of wanted to get it all out there and get it off my chest. I mean, they didn't talk to me about it.
They didn't talk to you about it at all?
No.
Did you like Wood Harris as you?
I like Wood Harris as me. I like way it was portrayed. I mean, I wasn't that bad on the court.
From what I heard, so in the show, Kareem kind of kicks you out, but it was really Westhead.
Yeah, well, but it was Kareem who they felt that at that time I was a distraction to the team, which I was trying to say, I'm not a distraction. Why don't you just set me down, tell me to stay at home, say I'm sick or whatever.
Right.
And we only have 3 games to go for the championship, but there was a lot of some hate going around that team because the wives and the girlfriends on that team did not understand that Iman could not drive, didn't know how to drive in L.A.
It was religious too, probably.
Right. No, it
wasn't that?
It wasn't the religion thing. It was the driving, because she would come to the game with my friend Vernell De Silva, who was a professor at Long Beach State, but she would come in like 5 minutes or 10 minutes late, and they thought she was overshadowing them. So they had gotten their husbands and boyfriends ear. So, and not one of them said to her, "Can I pick you up?"
Nobody.
Nobody ever said it. They never even got a chance to know us, you know.
Wow.
And so that's why it was a lot of friction going on. So the players decided, well, you know, with 3 games to go, he's suspended, and we're going to take his playoff share, and we're going to do this. So I got angry and said, hey, let's burn the whole damn thing down.
I'm surprised Jerry didn't step in or somebody did.
Well, everybody was, you know, because it was a crazy, strange time. Jerry West was there. Pat Riley was there. And we were all cool. But all of a sudden, everybody turned off that light. And so, because I wasn't the only dirty player on that team, you know.
Yeah.
There was a lot of dirt. But I never talk about them, and I always respect them.
Wow.
You know. But that's what happened. And so when winning time came on, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, God, I got to live through this again. But I lived through it because I tell my story to all of the people and everybody about what happened so that they can help themselves. So it was eye-opening for me. And it was a horrible thing for my kids, and everybody was like, oh,
but it's
God.
an exaggeration.
It's
I mean,
an exaggeration.
Jerry West wasn't
I know,
like that,
but
right?
No.
Right.
But it's an exaggeration. But from that, what happened, I was out, Kareem said to me, man, you got to come here for the 75th birthday. So me, Kareem, Magic, Herbie Hancock, we're all on the floor, you know, because Herbie was playing Happy Birthday for Kareem.
Whoa.
So we got James Worthy, all of us are just, you know, hanging out. So here come LeBron, jumps on my back, and I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing? You're too big. And Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis and all of the players come in, and I'm like, but it's Kareem's birthday. They said, yeah, but we want to make sure you know, and we want to make sure that you know that we love you and thank you for what you did for us. And I said, well, what really changed? Why would you? He said, because of winning time.
See
what I mean? How God
Gotcha.
works things like
Well,
that.
as we're wrapping this up, I
Yeah.
want to say, first of all, God blessed us with you, and in so many ways. I mean, from not only basketball, but from you've impacted our world so much. Tell us real quickly, last 2 questions. One, when does the Spencer Haywood rule come into effect? You said after the collective bargaining.
The collective bargaining.
So what
agreement.
year would that be?
This is coming up next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
So 2023.
My name is on it.
It will be the Spencer Haywood rule. Spencer, you're the man. Thank you so much for spending so much great time with us.
I'm in the den.
You're in the den. It's a studio. It is a studio.
Yes.
Where can people go for more information about the Spencer Haywood Foundation?
You can just go to my webpage. It's the Spencer Haywood Rule and the Spencer Haywood Foundation. And they can also catch me on my little podcast.
Am I going to be invited on this?
Yes, of course.
Are you going to interview me?
But you can't be eating on camera.
You see me eating a lot. I won't eat. I'll keep it clean. We'll just talk.
We'll
jazz.
talk Philadelphia. We'll talk Philadelphia basketball, and we'll talk Philadelphia things, and we just talk about jazz. Talk about this great city. I mean, I've watched this city in the last 12 years how it become the new city. Now the NBA is coming here in 2 to 3 years.
Well, that was my last question for you. There's going to be an NBA?
Yes.
100%.
100%.
There will be an NBA team in Las Vegas.
In Las Vegas.
Is LeBron going to own this team?
He looked like he's one of the front runners.
You better be a partner.
I'm going to be a part of it.
Can you get me in on that?
I got you.
Can I be a little minority owner? I'll take 0.3%. Anything.
3% in Las Vegas because of the team is going to be up around $3 billion.
That's what
You're
I'm saying.
going to be rolling.
I'm saying not even 3%. I'll just take 0.3. Anything.
You're going to be rolling.
Yes. There you go. The great Spencer Haywood. Thank you so much for spending time with us. This is the Vegas Huddle, where we have great, in-depth conversations with legendary people who are critical to not only our world, but to the Vegas community. Make sure you like, subscribe, check us out on the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network. This is the Vegas Huddle with the great Spencer Haywood. I'll see you guys back in the huddle. sometime soon.